Hello, everyone! Okay, so let me drop my volume. Holy crap, I'm really loud all of a sudden. Um, we are doing Beer Protocol. They can't see yet because I'm. What are you doing? You can't see him. So, I'm James, and we're going to be talking about Black Dwarf. But let's introduce you to the other person.
I don't know what kind of hand gestures you were making, but hi, this is Jacob.
I was pointing at
I'm
you.
here also to talk about the Black Dwarf. Turns out we're in sync on this for once.
Yeah.
Today, I am drinking not beer because I ran out of beer and forgot to go get some. So I made myself a Bermuda Mule.
Nice. I'm drinking Great Debate by Brothers Brewing Company.
Is that a
Um,
beer?
it is a beer because
James.
I'm not supposed to have it. I know, but hmm. Hmm.
It's not like this is being
Clink,
recorded.
clink, clink.
Clink.
So, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. So right now, I have a picture up of a certain individual called Wasp. We've seen pictures of Wasp coming in two different sizes. We've seen pictures of Ant-Man coming in two different sizes. We've seen pictures.
James, these things are neither black nor dwarves.
No, they're not. But we've seen pictures of the spiders. I think Miles possibly.
Is
Which
coming in multiple different sizes.
yeah, it's just so weird. Uh,
Big spider, little spider.
but we're talking about Black Dwarf.
It almost sounds like you're not excited to talk about this member of the Black Order, James.
What are you talking about? This is awesome. I've actually. So here's the fun thing, all our faithful watchers and listeners. I
The fun?
have not looked at his card yet.
Oh, James.
I've been too busy editing things, and I just now got the images, put it on the thing, and was like, let's podcast.
James, how are we supposed to believe in your credibility as a reporter and player and other various things when you openly admit to not looking at things? I mean, I
have
didn't
a
look at it either,
I have a microphone and a camera.
but I had the decency to at least pretend like I had looked at it.
Oh, I've looked at it. It's right here.
Oh. So, the Black Dwarf is the last member of the Black Order to be officially released. Oh, actually, wait a second. Who is. Someone else is on their affiliation
Thanos.
card, right?
Yeah, Thanos.
Oh, yeah, Thanos. Thanos will be the last one. So,
I don't think
what
they're
we.
ever going to reveal him. I think they're just going to have him just ship, and then suddenly it's just going to be there.
We'll see, won't we? Black Dwarf, let's start with his stat line. He is 6 health, short movement, a size 4, which is kind of interesting because that puts him on the upper end for
He's Hulk
size.
size.
I think Hulk. Yeah, he's Hulk size. His base is actually a little. I think his actual mini is slightly bigger than Hulk.
That's
However, unlike Hulk, he is only 4 threat.
yeah.
So we come in with a solid 4 threat character. All right.
He's a great tank, though. 4 physical, 3 energy, and
why.
3 psychic. That's actually pretty good.
Those are the. That's actually what I would consider to be the average for a 4-point character.
Really?
You're going to have at least 3s in every stat, and one of them's going to be a 4. I mean, that's what Cap has.
Hulk has 2.
Hulk is the exception because Hulk is counterbalanced by how much health he has.
Oh, that's true.
But no, 4-point characters seem to, on average, have at least 3s in every defense, with at least one of them being a 4.
I think
So he's still good.
Yeah, I think he's still like, even if that's average stat line, that's still better than a lot of the things we've seen coming out, which is like something always has like a 2, which is kind of useless.
I think it just kind of goes like the core set. The average point costs were 3 and 4, with the occasional 2-point model as an extreme rarity. 4 points, 4 threat was the high end in the original core set, and as the expansion's been going, we have seen more 3 and 2 or 5 plus threat characters being added to the game instead of 4 threat characters. I think has been fairly consistently. We haven't gotten as many new 4 threat characters. I think they also want to diversify the list building pool to give people more options at different point levels. They introduced other point levels like the 15 threat list level with some of the Wakanda expansions. So I think it's again, solid point of entry. 4 threat seems to be what the designer's intent. That seems to be the like high end models. Like the really premium models are going to be your 5+, but the solid workhorse, they're going to both be able to take hits and deal hits and do a lot of work that your list can build around is around 4.
Yeah, I've
Um,
been noticing that there's not been a now that we have a lot more 2 point cost models, there hasn't been a lot of entry points into each of the point levels that's just been lacking. That
yeah.
this is a good fit into the 4 points.
Yeah, list building is a lot healthier than it used to be.
Yeah. So
Okay, so with a 4-point model, what kind of attack should we be expecting? I'd say at least 6 dice on attack, and his axe strike is range 2, so he's
hey,
a melee boy.
guess
And
who's
6
got?
dice on attack. Hey, he again, kind of like now that we've reviewed a lot of these characters, 6 dice seems to be the average for a hard-hitting character. So that's what you would expect. That's what he's got. He gets
Standard.
energy. You
It's
see the
standard.
damage he deals.
Yeah, it's a standard
I mean,
strike.
that's still good. All right, his special high dollar attack, Brutal End, is range 3. It's nice that the melee character does have a range 3 attack. It can make him surprisingly brutal. Don't forget, he's on a big base. So
Yeah,
his range 3 is a decent amount of board control around him.
you get like an extra
8,
3/4 of an inch, or a little
yeah,
bit less than 3/4 of an inch because of just the base size.
yep. 8 dice base, very good. That's a hard attack. 4 threat, it's expensive. What do you get with this attack? If you get a wild, stagger.
Yeah.
Stagger just forces them to lose an action on their next activation. It's not bad at all. It's a great stats condition. Doesn't seem all that fancy for 4 threat. It's just like lots of dice. Ugh.
I think that's but in line with this character. Throwing lots of dice for 4 is actually pretty good. I think
Right.
giving him anything other than like even giving him stagger, I think is putting that attack on the tip side of good, as opposed to just being like, oh, it's just another attack.
Okay, it's definitely not bad by any means. It's I don't think it's incredible. Like it doesn't have tactical uses that are coming to mind off the top of my head, but it is a good hard hitting attack. Like if he's got the energy, absolutely he'll use it. All right, let's look at his superpowers, which is usually where a lot of the character comes to life. Black Fury. For 3, he chooses an interactive terrain feature or an enemy character, both size 4 or less, and within 2, and chucks it medium.
Whoa, whoa,
So
whoa! Size 4 or less?
it's a throw. He can throw Hulk.
He can throw Hulk.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Oh, this has now become a very interesting character.
But it is cost 3, which is around average for a throw. But I'm already seeing one cost 4 attack and a cost 3 superpower.
No,
And the throw you're going to be doing very consistently.
no, screw the 4 point. Yeah, you're throwing eight dice at him, but I would rather go ahead do an axe strike and then do a throw, as opposed to doing an axe strike and then doing a brutal end.
All right. His next power, Enforced Oblivion. For 2 energy, as an action, he moves, and his next attack gets 2 dice. This is actually a really big deal for this character. It's not a charge,
It's not a charge.
but it is a way for him to get more mileage out of his normal turn. Because figure for a melee person, especially if people are trying to dodge him or get out of his way, he's going to move and attack pretty often. This makes that game plan better. For relatively cheap, 2 energy is pretty feasible. He gets to move, and he gets 2 dice. So that means his basic axe strike is now hitting just as hard as his special attack. And his special attack at 10 dice by itself before any tactics cards or team buffs, that's probably one of the hardest hitting attacks in the game.
If you can
So
do if you can do this, so I don't understand why you wouldn't do this. So it's only 2 unless you don't have the energy. I would do this move, do an axe strike because you're now getting 8 dice as opposed to, well, he's only moving short. That's the only downside to this. Is you're only moving short.
Is he is a short mover, so he's going to be moving pretty often to keep people within range.
But he's also a large base, so his short's still kind of like a medium.
I wouldn't give him that much. Remember how long it takes Hulk to get into position with? Picture Hulk without Gamma Leap.
Okay, thank you. I was like, no, I know exactly how fast he gets into position.
Hulk without Gamma Leap is kind of what we're looking at for moving around the board. So it's really important he doesn't get any extra movement out of Enforced Oblivion. He just gets his normal move. But once he is at the fight, this is going to enable him to keep moving boosting his attack power and hitting harder. It's a really cool ability. I like it a lot.
Yeah, if you have to move and you think you can move and get a strike, I would not do brutal edge. I would do this and then do an axe strike and then throw him.
Like, I think given the size, his short movement, and the on certain scenarios, I think he can afford to stay still. But given that this guy is vulnerable to pushes himself, like sure, it can still push him all day.
Yeah.
Because Shuri's size thing is not restricted. Push is not restricted by size. I think Black Dwarf is going to be needing to move quite often, which I think the designers also realized, and so they gave him an incentive to move, which is more damage. All right, his next power, Intimidating Presence for 2 energy. When an enemy character within 2 of Black Dwarf attacks another of Black Dwarf's allies, Black Dwarf can use Intimidating Presence and forces them to target Black Dwarf. This is a really interesting bodyguard.
He's yeah, actually.
And we'll real quick, we'll also do his last power because it'll tie in. Invulnerable Skin. When he would take damage, reduce the damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. He has a similar invulnerability power.
He is better than Iron Man. So, Intimidating Presence, it's off. So when an enemy character within 2 of this character, he's not an escort. So like if you have a ranged character who's trying to shoot past you, or you have a like a venom strike, like something that has a very long melee range, you have to be just near them. You don't have to be near the allied character, so they can be attacking the absolute opposite side of you, like 4 away, and you're still taking the hit.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I also think, like, this power combined with Enforced Oblivion, you could do a lot of damage by using 2 attacks for your 2 activations. I really do see Black Dwarf is going to be trying to stay mobile because he would like the extra damage from Enforced Oblivion, but he also wants to make sure he stays right up in people's faces with his big base, so he can use Intimidating Presence to tank hits for the rest of the team.
All right, before we start getting into like tactics and things we can start thinking about, let's look at his injured side.
Turns out he only gets better.
Wow, he goes up to 8.
The only change on Black Dwarf's injured side is he gets 2 more health.
Well then, you hurt me and therefore I get better.
Yeah, no, Black Dwarf is... There aren't a ton of dedicated tank characters in this game, I feel like. You have Okoye and Captain America with the ability to redirect damage to themselves. Cap is the one who has really substantial defenses. Okoye is, I'm a 2-point model, so I can redirect an attack at a more valuable model at me. I've got a way to add blanks to my defense, but only if within a proximity, so she's okay at it. Venom can do some tanking by regenerating damage.
Yeah, that's his big thing, is that he can, you hit me, I can make an attack off the hit you made, and I can heal myself.
Right. So depending on positioning, though, you can still play around that. Black Dwarf, I think, is one of the first examples of a really aggro tank, of someone who draws aggression with his ability, but is still doing his full offensive output. While like a traditional definition of a tank or damage mitigation character would be, I have ways to soak up and make the damage I take less, or cover for people around me. Black Dwarf has those abilities, but he's also about going after your opponent.
Yeah, I see him protecting Ebon Maw pretty well by just being in the face of anyone who can reach out and touch him. Like anyone that has any range attacks, like if you have a rocket, if you have Winter Soldier, anyone that's got like a super long range, you run him up, stand next to him, even if you can't get the initial hit off and you're just standing next to him, doing the Intimidating Presence and going, cool, you shot that guy that's like halfway across the board, you're now targeting me. That's amazing. Plus, if you get hit, you're getting power. It
does make it more likely.
Yeah, and then you can just like, okay, cool, it's my turn. I'm gonna hit you and throw you.
Yeah, it kind of depends on your situation. Like, if you don't think there's anyone you can try to protect, then I think using his Enforced Oblivion, assuming you start your turn with at least 2 energy, use Enforced Oblivion to walk up, get some extra damage, use Axe Strike with 8 dice, get as much energy as you can off of that, and then you kind of have the choice of, do you use your throw, Black Fury, to do more damage or force a reposition, or do you save that for intimidating presence to tank for the rest of your team, or to have a really brutal attack on the following turn. I don't know. I enjoy in this game, especially as we've seen a lot of characters outside of the original core set. They have multiple attacks, but I kind of like characters where it's like, no, my basic attack is actually really good. Like, one of my favorite things about the design of the game is that an attack you pay for is not necessarily better than just a basic attack. It's a more situational or a different option. Because I see a lot of relatively expensive abilities on Black Dwarf's card. And while his Axe Strike is going to do a lot of damage, I don't think he can use all of his abilities all the time.
No, you're going to have to make choices.
So I think he's got to be selective with what he uses. So I like Axe Strike. Like, if you do a turn where you spend 6 to use Enforced Oblivion and then use Brutal End, holy crap, you've got 10 dice of damage. You might be burning one of their actions. However, my brain's also thinking, with 10 dice of damage, do you just outright kill? 10 dice of potential damage. But do you just outright knock out or daze a lot of characters?
Yes. So I think he becomes a very situational character where either he's going to go and stagger somebody. I actually think he's going to be better than Hulk. I would actually bring him.
Let me finish a thought real quick.
Go ahead.
My thought with his Brutal End having stagger is interesting, because if you do the fully powered up 10 dice, maybe a tactic card for a couple more dice, or to reduce their defense, and he knocks them out, or if he dazes them, then the stagger is going to fall off, because you lose all conditions when you're dazed. And if you knock them out, the stagger doesn't matter because you knock them out. So it's why it's kind of interesting to me, and why I don't necessarily think Enforced Oblivion Brutal End is your go-to game plan. It looks big, but I think it's so much damage that the status effect is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Now, assuming you don't actually kill them, like if you throw that at Hulk, then that's really good still.
I mean, if you spike
that was just
dice,
kind of interesting.
If you spike dice,
or they
you
get a
could
bad
possibly get
because it's dice.
Well, you can possibly get half of on the top end, you're going to get half of Hulk's health. On the average end, you're going to get about 6. And then low end can be always down to 0. Him going after. I don't think he's a good attack, like a point. So like gamma shelters, because we always like doing gamma shelters because it's straight down the middle. I don't think he's good for going after points. I think he's good for going after the points that people are weaker at. So like if Red Skull is sitting on a point in the back, having him go after Red Skull, because Red Skull is not going to want to blast him right next to him, but he's going to have to at that point.
Maybe. So it's important to remember, while his intimidating presence does let him redirect attacks, they're only within 2 of him. I think a lot of characters can actually just move and attack what they want to anyway. So he's kind of forcing them, instead of double attacking, to spend an action to move out of his area.
Wow, he's actually... So if he walks up to MODOK does the spinning chair of doom, hits him, bounces off of him, attacks somebody else because it's a second attack. He can then use the energy he got from that to do intimidating presence and redirect that attack back to himself.
Yep. But my other thought is MODOK's a medium movement.
Yep.
MODOK can probably just move and attack what he wanted to attack.
Yeah.
So it's kind of important to remember his positioning is still going to be important, especially if they're against a wall or a piece of terrain they can't easily move around, is you can try to box them in and force them to stay within your aura, your threatening, intimidating presence range. I think he might also be really effective against high damage short movers, because with movement short, like Crossbones or Hulk or Venom, then that might be a way to lock them in place by getting base to base with them, because they can't move far enough to get out of intimidating presence. So it forces the really heavy hitters like Black Dwarf forces them to attack Black Dwarf instead of trying to position to hit someone else. So I think that might be a thing to do. Like, I would not try to lock down someone with like a long movement or necessarily someone with a medium movement with a long range attack. Like, because they can just move and shoot at the person they want to hit anyway.
That's actually a good point, though. I mean, if you're like, okay, I really can't get into a position, but if I move to this position, I'm pretty much within range 2 of anyone that wants to attack somebody else.
Right.
It
So,
becomes
because
a
it's
very
also really
good.
important.
It becomes a good. I have nothing better to do.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of. I've been playing lots of Imperial Assault lately, and what comes up pretty often is, well, okay, if I move this piece now, my opponents, the other players, will be able to move a lot of their pieces in response, and I can't change what I did because this piece is already activated. So Black Dwarf would go first, get close to somebody, and then they could spend the rest of their turn moving around Black Dwarf's intimidating presence because it's static. Unless you have a way to give him another move or teleport him with a space stone or do a variety of other effects, that's a static known variable and they can plan around that. Or if
Also,
Black Dwarf goes late in the turn, or if Black Dwarf starts the round already in position and you can just leave him there to mess up your opponent's plans and then activate him to keep messing them up.
also, you're not gonna be able to throw him, but he's gonna be able to throw you.
Fair point as well. Although I think Hulk can throw him.
Can Hulk do a size 4?
I'd be surprised if he can't.
I thought he could only do train size 4. I don't think he can do people size 4. I don't
Maybe.
see why
I don't know.
not.
I'm just a man drinking a mule on the internet.
Yeah, that's true. Now, okay, so he's definitely going into the Black Order list. I can see
There's
him
only
being
5 models, so probably.
well, I can see him being a good placement in a list for, say, like Avengers. When you want to swap out Hulk, I think he is a good substitution.
Perhaps, but James, see if I can get my steepled fingers on the screen. What about Big Dick Thor?
God dang it! We always have to come back to friggin' Thor.
I don't
I
think
mean,
Avengers swaps out Hulk simply because that
if
kills Big Dick Thor.
So in Asgardians, bringing him in an Asgardians list is kind of a dick move because at that point, you can't do the toss me with Hulk with Thor, but now you have two severely massive hitters just walking across the field, and you have to deal with both of them before they get to you.
So let's kind of wrap up real quick. I think where I would try to direct this guy, if I'm trying to think of like what roles the heavy hitters have, like Thor is really good at clearing out a point or just whacking something real hard. But with Thor, with his AoE, if he has enough energy, he could get to a point and he could just bop it with his Thunder God AoE, everything within 2, which will do a lot of work to objective holders. Black Dwarf, as an example of that, I don't think he's necessarily good at clearing a point. He has no AoEs, so he can only attack one target at a time.
No, but however, that thing is going to die.
True enough. I think Black Dwarf is going to be really good at countering your opponent's heavy hitters. Yeah. That's kind of where I would be curious to try him, is specifically as a counterplay against Thor, against Hulk. Thor could probably, he's got medium movement and flight. Thor could probably get away from him to attack when he really wanted to, especially since Thor, at the very least, has his giant hammer throw with range 5.
Mm-hmm.
So he can always reach out and touch your squishy thing in the back or a maw. But Black Dwarf can take hits. Like every piece in the game, he will go down if he's focus fired, but it'll take your opponent probably longer than they planned.
Yeah.
Both with his damage reduction ability and his health pool and his solid defenses. So it'll take effort.
Even back in the War Machine days, we would always say, give your opponent bad decisions. So if you have no distinctive way of doing something that's going to be significant, make them have 2 bad decisions they have to choose from. Black Dwarf is that bad decision. It's either, do I go after him or he's going to kill me next turn? You can't have things like Widow, like Black Widow, or anything that's doing like 2 points, like throwing three dice or throwing 4 dice, he's gonna tank it. He doesn't care.
Yeah, you need high value damage to get through his defenses.
Yeah, I think he is definitely going to go into my my one of my lists. I'm not sure where he's going to be placed yet. I'm gonna try him in my Red Skull roster. I want to see how he works as opposed to say freaking Modoc actually. Um,
Take that, Psychic Boy.
I want to see how he runs in a list like that. I'm very curious.
I think the last things I want to mention, because we're kind of talking about with his short movement, how can you get him in place, or how can you keep his intimidating presence aura moving outside of his activation?
How can
Because
you?
once he's done, there were a couple cards that comes in his box. He's in a pack with Ebony Maw, so there's always a few tactic cards and other things. In the pack with him is the Space Stone, which Ebony Maw can use. The Space Stone takes a slot in your list of your 10 people, and it costs 2 threat, and it costs 2 energy. But you choose an allied character within 3 of the holder, and you move them 2 within their current position. And it is a place effect. And with his big base, as we all know from War Machine, you can get a lot of cheating distance out of him with that.
Yep. Yep.
So that's a really specific setup, but it's one that's enabled in his box. Like, you're guaranteed to have all the pieces if you buy them.
If you're going with a Black Order list, and you don't have the Space Stone, like even in your roster, you don't have the Space Stone, you're doing something wrong.
I don't know. Space Stone is 2 threat, which makes Ebony carrying the Space Stone like 7 threat.
Still, that's way worth it.
Well, it's going to take some playtesting. The other card I want to mention, the Black Order gets Mothership in this box.
They do get Mothership.
Black Order, 2 Black Order characters can spend 2 energy to play it, and then you put one of those 2 characters within one of the other one as long as they're not holding an objective token.
Which we'll be
You
talking.
can't use it.
We'll be talking about the people that is going to come very handy with next time.
But I could see Black Dwarf being a really strong contender, especially if you could even use this semi-defensively. Like, say your opponent rushed up a character with long who can actually hit, like Zemo or Black Panther, and they got up on Ebony Maw unexpectedly, and Ebony Maw doesn't have enough energy to play a crap ton of his defensive ability to get more defense dice. So Ebony Maw will then just, or he sees that coming, Ebony Maw will just teleport Black Dwarf next to him, and Black Dwarf will suck up the attacks.
All right.
So that's a really good way to keep Black Dwarf moving around the board. You could cover potentially a lot of ground with that, or even save one of your characters where there's going to be like if you just go really deep downfield with, say, Corvus Glaive or Proxima Midnight into Assassin mode, you take out one of your opponent's characters, but there's 2 more coming right behind them. You can use Mothership to teleport Black Dwarf right next to your Assassin.
Yep.
And now it's just going to be like, did you want to melee Corvus Glaive? Here's Black Dwarf.
Yeah, this is going to be I cannot wait for that model to come out. All right. Well,
Okay,
for 2 people who have not seen the card, we actually broke that down pretty well.
I mean, look, Crisis Protocol is a cool game, but we're not exactly talking sex, like, 7th dimensional chess with these pieces. It's just a little bit of playtest to validate the ideas we have, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to try when everything starts kind of back up. We're gonna have to definitely bring out some models and proxy some stuff. All right. Well, thanks, Jake.
Thank you, James.
Game off.